The Icarus Trap. Why your last big win is the most dangerous thing in your career. Icarus explained through psychology. Daedalus was the finest craftsman in Crete, the architect who'd even built the labyrinth for King Minos. But when Minos turned on him and imprisoned him along with his son Icarus, Daedalus did what he always did. He built his way out. He fashioned two pairs of wings from feathers and wax, fitted them to himself and his son, and prepared for the one escape route a labyrinth couldn't contain: straight up. Before they leapt from the tower, he gave Icarus the only instruction that mattered: fly the middle course. Too low, and the sea spray will soak the feathers and drag them down. Too high, and the sun would melt the wax, holding everything together. The path to freedom isn't dramatic, it was disciplined. They took off, and for a while it worked exactly as planned. But Icarus, watching the island shrink beneath him, felt something most of us recognize: the specific thrill of doing something difficult and discovering you're good at it. He flew on. Daedalus, looking back, called out warnings that went unheard. The wax softened, then liquefied. Feathers scattered into the air like snow, and Icarus fell into the sea that would later carry his name, the Icarian Sea. Here's the detail worth sitting with. Icarus didn't fail because the plan was bad or because he lacked skill. He failed at the exact moment his competence was confirmed. The first stretch of flight, controlled, working, exhilarating, is what gave him the confidence to stop following the instructions. Success didn't make him careless by accident. Success is what generated the carelessness. Psychologists have a well documented name for this: overconfidence bias, sometimes specifically studied in leadership research as the hubris hypothesis. The mechanism is simple and well replicated. After a real recent win, people systematically overestimate their skill, their control over outcomes, and their odds of continued success. And this isn't a fringe finding. One of the most cited lines in the psychology of judgment from researchers Bondt and Thaler calls overconfidence perhaps the most robust finding in the psychology of judgment. It shows up in something as mundane as 93% of American drivers rating themselves as better than average, a statistical impossibility, and as consequential as studies on CEOs, where a documented pattern called CEO hubris links overconfidence specifically to recent success, a sense of self importance, and a belief in one's own unusual competence, often right before a costly, ego driven decision like an overpriced acquisition. What makes this bias dangerous isn't that it's irrational on its face, it's that it operates beneath conscious awareness. Researchers describe it as a form of poor metacognitive monitoring, the gap between how good we believe we are and how good we actually are widens specifically when feedback is delayed, ambiguous, or is absent, which describes almost every real workplace win. You rarely get instant objective proof of why something worked, so the brain fills the gap with a flattering story. I did this because I'm simply better now. There's also a quieter cousin of this effect worth naming: self serving bias, where we credit our own skill for wins and blame external circumstances for losses. The two reinforce each other. A win confirms your skill, the absence of immediate failure confirms it further. Each cycle without a correction makes the next leap a little higher. In a corporate setting, this rarely looks like literally flying into the sun. It looks like a manager who lands one successful product launch and stops running it past the team for input on the next one. Because last time, their instincts were right. It looks like the senior associate who gets the big clients and starts skipping the prep calls because the relationship basically runs itself now. It looks like the founder who raises a strong round and starts hiring on gut feel instead of process because the gut feel got them this far. None of these people are reckless by nature. They're reckless because the wax just held. And the brain, reasonably but wrongly, concludes that altitude is now safe. So, what actually counters this, given that the bias operates unconsciously? The research offers a fairly specific answer: external, structural checkpoints, not willpower. Bocconi University's research on overconfidence found that interventions work best when they target the actual root cause. If the overconfidence comes from inflated beliefs about one's ability, the fix is accurate, concrete feedback, comparing prediction to outcome, not vibes to outcome. Practically, this means three things for anyone riding a win right now. First, deliberately keep at least one person in the room whose job is explicitly to disagree with you. Not a yes man promoted by the win, but someone with no incentive to flatter you. Second, after any success, force yourself to write down why you think it worked before you ask anyone else. Prepare your private explanation against theirs, because the gap is where the overconfidence is hiding. Third, treat your instruction set, your version of Daedalus's middle course, as something that applies more, not less, after a win, because the win is precisely the condition under which you're most likely to ignore it. Icarus's mistake wasn't ambition. Ambition got him off the tower. His mistake was treating the success of the first half of the flight as proof that he no longer needed the boundary that made it possible. The myth ends with him in the sea, named after him, the Icarian Sea. But most careers end somewhere quieter: a stalled promotion, a blown deal, a team that stops trusting your judgment. But the mechanism is identical, and it's measurable, and it has a name: the hubris hypothesis, or what we call the Icarus trap. Who's the Daedalus in your life telling you which guardrails to follow? Are you still listening to them?